Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. We turn our attention now to the sport of kings, horse racing. The flat racing season in Britain comes to a close on Saturday with the staging of the British Champions Day at the Ascot Racecourse. The prize money on offer for the 6th race card at the Berkshire is the most for any race day in Britain. The Kipco Champion Stakes, the 4th race on the card, will see one of the world's best rated horse, the 4-year-old colt Baaeed, and I'm trying to say it like George, looking to end his career unbeaten with 11 wins. So, George, of course, Baaeed, the horse that has been unbeaten this season, do you think he can continue on that run?
Yeah. It looks as if the race is going to be tailor-made for him. There are so many variables to consider when analyzing British racing that you probably wouldn't pay attention to if you're talking about racing in this part of the world, in Jamaica or in Trinidad and Tobago or anywhere in the Caribbean. The ground is the most important thing. Now, what will be the quality of the ground? The ground has been listed as good to soft and soft in places because there has been rain at Ascot and in that part of England as people have been reporting. So the ground, is the ground conducive to Baaeed producing his best? Yes. So from the ground perspective, he's fine. From the weight perspective, the weight that he's carrying relative to his rivals, the rate is fine as well. The distance now, for a long time, people thought that he was a specialist miler, Baaeed. But he showed in his last run that he can win at 10 furlongs and that he can beat good horses at 10 furlongs, which is 1.25 miles, which is the distance of the Champion Stakes on Saturday. The ground, the question for the ground, can he get that distance? Yes, he can get that distance. So there are many pluses in his favor. But there's just something about him. I'm not as big a Baaeed fan as many in Britain who from the punditry class. I get the impression, Mariah, that he's almost a horse. Okay, in 2012 we saw a horse that is the greatest horse I've ever seen in my lifetime. The greatest horse that many people who are several years my senior have ever seen in their lifetimes, a horse called Frankel. And maybe I am just upset by the fact that people are trying to compare Baaeed to Frankel. He's nothing like Frankel. But Baaeed, there's just something soft about him. I think that the horses that he's beaten are not the creme de la creme. And I think that tomorrow there's one horse in there in particular. I'm sure you asked me about that one. There's one horse in particular who I think has an excellent chance of beating him. But it's almost as if the media are trying to will Baaeed to be something great, this super horse, because racing, of course, needs a super horse to market for people to be drawn to the racing game, especially social punters, that they're trying to make him into this big inflated thing that he really isn't. So I'm not so big a Baaeed fan, although I respect his ability, but I think he can be beaten. And in his last race, for the owners, I hope he doesn't get beaten. But for the quality of racing and for racing itself, I hope that his colors are lowered, and I suspect that I know the horse that will beat him on Saturday.
Yeah, so, you spoke about Baaeed. If he ends his unbeaten career, it would be a story. It would be pasted all over the headlines. It would be a magical story, one that will definitely sell. Which horse, though, George? Will, if there is to be an upset, will upset Baaeed?
Last year's Derby winner, Adair had a very, very good 2021 season, winning the Derby, winning the King George, but he went to Paris-Longchamp for the Arc de Triomphe. We saw the Arc recently, won by Alpinista. Adair went to the Arc in France at Longchamp, but the ground, there was heavy rain and it was very heavy going. It was muddy, as we would say in these parts. He led, but by the time he turned for home, he had dissipated all his energy because the energy took him to lead a quality field like that in conditions as testing as that. By the time the jockey really asked him to go, he had nothing left in the tank. He emptied out. He was beaten. He was on a long break to get him recuperated after a very hard campaign. We saw him once this season in a prep race where he made two horses behind him, two good horses, look like absolute mugs. I thought he was running against human beings, the way he made them look slow, and he was not asked to extend by his jockey. I think the trainer, Charlie Appleby, has prepared him timely for this event. I think Adair comes into this race cherry ripe. The race there will be a strong enough pace in the race. The ground will suit him, and I think that if Baaeed's colors are lowered, I expect Adair to be the one to beat him. but I suspect that there are many more people who want Baaeed to win than there will be wanting Baaeed to lose. But if I were to gamble in the race, Mariah, or where I'm betting man, or you're betting advisor, I would advise you to put a huge lump. Well, I'd advise you to lump on Adair to beat Baaeed in the Champions Stakes at Ascot on Saturday.
Yeah, what's for sure, Baaeed is the headline act right now. Only time will let us know if George is right and Adair creates that upset.
But may I also say before we go up, Mariah, that the race, there are 6 races on the Champions Stakes card, the Champions Day card. All 6 races are Group 1 races. There are some very good horses running on Saturday, and you are incentivized to wake up and watch it on SportsMax because of the quality of the horses on show. In the first race, which is the British Champions, the Kipco Champions Long Distance Cup, over 1 mile and 7 furlongs, Trushan is going to be the favorite, but Eldar Eldarov, the recent St. Leger winner, comes in and has strong claims to favoritism in that race. There's also a sprint involving Kinross and Naval Crown, which will be the second race on the card. Then you get the chance to see Emily Upjohn, the horse who finished second in the Oaks at Ascot, beaten by Tuesday. She returns against horses that she should have the measure of. Then there is another race involving Inspiral, the outstanding juvenile coming into the 3-year-old campaign as a filly, but she missed the Guineas. She won at Royal Ascot, got beaten thereafter, but repaired her reputation with a good victory in France. She comes here in a mile race, Frankie Dettori riding. Inspiral is set to breeze rivals in this contest. So, sum total, a lot of big horses on Saturday, big purses, Ascot, SportsMax. It's a date.
It's a date that George is definitely showing up for.
Yeah,
Let's take a quick break.
Yeah.